Welcome back to the Scaredy Cat Guide, my friends. My name is Jenny, and today we are talking about Mission Space in Disney's Epcot. If you're new here, this is the channel where we talk about theme parks and anxiety. We talk about sensory issues and really just anything that you might want to know if you're an anxious rider, like I am. Now, to be quite honest, Mission Space is one of my least favorite attractions in all of Walt Disney World. It is extremely claustrophobic. It's very intense if you happen to take the orange or more intense route. And overall, it really just is not for the weak of heart. Even though I absolutely adore this attraction as a kid, it is one that I have been putting off for way too long. And today is the day we are going to ride it together. So without further ado, let's dive into those details. This space-themed attraction contains an extremely claustrophobic ride system, flashing lights and loud noises, and of course, the potential for motion sickness. Now, the interesting thing about this attraction is the fact that there are two different variants. You can be on either the green mission or the orange mission, and which one you choose has a very big impact on the experience you will have. So if we're talking the orange mission, this attraction also contains high speeds, extended periods of G-forces, and spinning. So let's start off by talking about the big one here, and that is the claustrophobic ride system. This is the reason that I do not ride this ride very often. To me, it is extremely claustrophobic for a few reasons. First of all, this is a pretty standard simulator in a lot of ways. However, when you step into that ride vehicle, the entire front panel will actually come towards you and stop only a few inches from your face. Now, on top of the ride vehicle being so close to you and really not having much room at all around you, there is also an overhead harness on this attraction. So on Mission Space, you will be locked in with this harness and also have the ride vehicle swing towards you so that you have just a few inches of space between you and the screen in front of you. There is no other attraction in Walt Disney World like it, and even though this definitely adds to the immersion, it makes you feel like you're really an astronaut in space, it is definitely not for everyone and definitely not for me. Now, on top of this very claustrophobic ride system, we also have some flashing lights and loud noises. Now, these loud noises are what you would expect on other kind of space-themed attractions. We have beeping, some blaring sirens. We, of course, have some of those flashing alarm lights, things of that nature. And of course, some of these flashing lights and loud noises surround some moments of peril. Now, of course, don't be afraid. You will come out the other side safe and sound, but a couple of these story beats on this attraction do involve some kind of dangerous shenanigans. I wouldn't call this scary or anything like that. There are no monsters or aliens or anything that has that kind of creepy, spooky vibe. But the whole narrative of the attraction is pretty intense overall. Now, before we dive into the motion sickness aspect, let's talk about the difference between the green mission and the orange mission. So like I mentioned before, you can choose to have either a more intense option or the less intense option. Basically, the difference here is that the orange mission, which is the more intense of the two, involves you spinning so fast that you experience some pretty hefty G-forces. Now, this is an enclosed simulator, so you really don't feel like you're spinning at all. You're just experiencing some kind of weightless effects, those aforementioned G-forces, and overall, it makes for a much more intense ride than the green version. So on this orange mission, you will actually reach a top speed of 35 miles per hour while spinning. Now, this provides its passengers with 2.5 Gs, which, just to put that into perspective, Rock and Roller Coaster over in Hollywood Studios actually gives you 4.5 Gs at launch. The difference here is that Mission Space actually exposes you to these G-forces on multiple occasions and they're for an extended period of time. So while you're hitting those G-forces in Rock and Roller Coaster, it's just at the beginning, just as you're accelerating with that launch. Mission Space is a completely different ballgame. To me, it is much more intense. Just because you have that crazy disorienting feeling, it feels so much more intense just because it's longer, and it's not so much of a thrill as it is an experience. And to me, it's an experience that I would rather skip. And if you're wondering about that speed, this is about as fast as some of the coasters over in Magic Kingdom are, like Thunder Mountain or Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Again, this doesn't feel like a roller coaster in any regard, really. You just feel those crazy G-forces and otherwise don't really feel like you're moving or spinning at all. However, like I said, it's very disorienting and I would not recommend this for anyone who has any sort of vertigo or inner ear problems or even motion sickness of any kind. Now, these G-forces alone are enough to give you some serious motion sickness, but regardless of whether you're on green or orange mission, you will encounter some standard simulator movements, something like you'd experience on Star Tours over in Hollywood Studios, and of course some rushing visuals, which altogether could be a recipe for disaster if you struggle with motion sickness. This is the kind of ride that will take you out for the rest of the day, so proceed with caution. Some people can handle it just fine, but I know so many people who stay far away from this attraction because it's just very, very intense in the motion sickness department. Now let's talk about those ride vehicles. Now what we have here are individual simulators that seat 4 passengers each. Now this attraction is similar to Smuggler's Run over in Hollywood Studios in the sense that each of the passengers has a specific role to play. So you'll be told to press a couple of buttons. They don't really do anything or have any bearing on the actual experience, but it does make it a little bit more immersive. And we also have an overhead harness, like I mentioned before. So if the super claustrophobic ride vehicles themselves weren't enough to give you claustrophobia, the overhead harness might just do it. Now, when it comes to the ride duration, Mission Space clocks in at 3 minutes and 45 seconds, which is very standard for other rides like it. However, like I said, this one is very, very intense to me. Now, especially that I live here and that I'm a local, I can handle most rides that otherwise would have given me a lot of anxiety, but this one is really, really rough for me, and I don't think I will ever get used to it, so just keep that in mind. But if you're more concerned about the G-forces or the kind of thrill elements, it might be encouraging to know that it's a pretty short experience overall. And now that you have all the facts, let's actually go hop in line. Now this one sits at around a 15-minute wait usually, I've noticed, and it's because it's not really for everybody. But like I said, we're gonna do this together. I am definitely nervous, but I can do it with you. So let's do it. Ready? Let's go hop in line. You'll find this attraction in the World Discovery section of Epcot. Now, once you'll enter the queue, you'll find yourself inside. So this is a great attraction to do if you don't want to stand out in the heat, because really all of the queue is indoors. You've got that lovely AC, and overall it usually has a pretty short wait time. So once you walk inside, you'll just make your way down these long themed hallways. It looks like you're walking into a space station. You'll see some cool props, some cool rooms off to the side that really add to the immersion. And before long, you'll come upon a cast member who will send you into a little pre-show room. Now this pre-show is very standard. You'll just see a short little video, stand in your spot, and you'll learn that you're about to embark on a training simulator to prepare you for flight. Now once the doors do open, you'll make your way into another hallway that kind of takes you around the boarding station, and you'll find your spot on the floor where you will be told which role you have been assigned. Now you will get several warnings through this queue that will tell you that if you don't do well with claustrophobia or darkness, enclosed dark spaces, that kind of thing, to go ahead and opt out of this experience. And I would say definitely do not be embarrassed if you feel like this is you. I cannot tell you how many times I have opted out of this ride because it's really not for everyone. And even though on some days I can handle it just fine, there are others that it is just a straight no-go. So after being assigned your roles, the doors will open and you'll be able to make your way into the simulator itself. You will find your seat, sit down, stow all of your carry-on items just like you would on a flight. And I will note here that sometimes it can take a little while for this ride to get started if there are any sort of accessibility concerns. So just be prepared that you might be waiting a little while even after getting locked into the ride. You will have some air blowing in your face, and there are barf bags at the ready that are within arm's reach at all times. Now once the ride does actually commence, the actual control panel that has been moved aside to give you room to get into the ride vehicle will start coming towards you and close you in. Again, I cannot stress enough how claustrophobic this particular ride vehicle is. The control panel stops just inches from your face. There is no room for you to move around, especially with that overhead harness on. And even with all that, you can be dealing with some delays. However, if you are braver than I am, eventually this ride will set off and you will find yourself about to launch. Now, just a quick note here, we will walk through this attraction as you would experience it on the orange mission. So if you're planning on doing green mission and you hear me talk about G-forces, just know that you will not be experiencing those at all, and you will still experience some of that standard simulator movement, kind of like you would find on Star Tours. So once this ride sets off, you will take off after a countdown, experience those really intense G-forces, and then once you enter space, you'll actually experience a very interesting sensation of weightlessness. Now, this can feel very disorienting. Of course, it's very immersive. It's very cool. It makes you feel like you're actually there. But for me, it's a very disorienting feeling, and one that does not play well with my anxiety in particular. Now, after getting into space, you'll prepare for your slingshot around the moon, which is another really intense segment of G-forces. You'll find yourself flinging around the moon, feeling those really intense forces once again, and then you'll learn that you're about to go into hypersleep. So for a brief moment, all the lights will turn off, everything will go quiet. Now, this only lasts for a few seconds because very quickly you are woken up by blaring sirens and a pretty chaotic meteor storm outside your window. Now, you'll escape these meteors, of course, and descend through the atmosphere where, again, you will definitely feel those G-forces. But the excitement does not stop there. Once you actually reach the ground, you will have a crash landing that almost sees you careening off of a cliff. Now, rest assured, you will end this mission safe and sound. Your aircraft will stop just before falling off that cliff, and the simulation will come to an end. Now, the control panel will release. It'll move back to give you space to exit the ride vehicle. You'll be able to remove your overhead harness and head out towards the exit. Now, a cast member will point you down some hallways, which will send you out into a little play area that has a little indoor playground and some cool little space-themed props. From there, you'll pass right through the gift shop and end up right back outside into that beautiful Florida sunshine. And there we have it. What do you think about Mission Space? This is a ride that, like I said, stays at the bottom of my list. It is not my favorite by any means, even though I loved it as a child. I know several people who were able to handle it better when they were younger. I don't know if that's a biological thing, and it's just that as we age, that motion sickness, the disorientation, and that kind of thing gets worse. But be prepared, even if you handled it when you were younger, you might have a completely different experience if you're, say, over the age of 30. Now, even though this one is not my favorite, and it happens to have a lot of elements that trigger my anxiety, it doesn't mean that it's not for everyone. This is a super cool, very immersive, and even thrilling ride that I think a lot of people don't really even know about. It almost always has a low wait time, there's an indoor queue, there are so many things about this attraction that are really awesome, really great, and really encapsulate that classic Epcot energy, in my opinion. However, just be prepared before hopping on that there are some elements that could make it a little bit of a rough ride for some people, like me. Now, really quick, I wanted to give a special shout out to John Y. Chen for once again letting us use your footage. Thank you so much for giving us a great inside look at the actual attraction, the ride vehicles, and making sure you guys know exactly what to expect. Now, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, don't forget to like, subscribe, stick around, stay a while. We would love to have you in our little community of anxious riders. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.